Hello, welcome to the virtual reception for Flora and Fauna, as close as our backyards, as far as our imagination. I'm Adine Storer, the co-director at the Belmont Gallery of Art, where the show is hanging at 19 Moore Street in Belmont, as well as it's online virtually like we are now at www.virtualbga.org. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's really great to see everybody. It's great to have a chance to talk about all the wonderful art that's in the gallery. Some of the artists are going to talk about their pieces. I just wanted to take a second and say it's been since 2014 that we've had so many animals in the gallery. This is backwards, but this was 2014. It was called Animal Art. And so the animals are back as well with the plants and all kinds of wonderful creatures. The inspiration for the show was really mainly from two artists who are going to speak first. Paula Pittman Brown, who does these vivid, wonderful sort of storytelling perspectives on animals interacting with nature in the Belmont suburbs. They're just, I think probably one of the first times I saw her work was in the fairy tale exhibit. What was it? The ship of you're muted, but you can tell us about it. And then the other artist who inspired me was Chelsea Brown of Kiki Crafts. Kiki Crafts, Chelsea? You can.
It's cakey. We'll talk about
Cakey.
it.
Cakey. I did this wonderful workshop with her where we did these incredible felted gnomes. Take a look at this guy and his beard. And it was so much fun. And she does these incredible creatures and imaginative things. And so with both of them as a foundation, we just sort of went from there. And I think Rebecca had always wanted to do a flora and fauna show, but so this has been a real treat. Rebecca will try and stop in tonight. Her son is graduating, and she said she'd try and dial in and listen, but she gives her best to everybody, and she's loving this show. So the basic format for tonight is going to be we have 5 or 6 artists sharing, and we will do each one. I'll introduce them. They'll talk about their work. I can screen share and show you some of what they've done. And then we will do a Q&A session at the end. So if you could hold your questions until later, that'd be great. And then we'll wrap up with some announcements about the virtual, another virtual, but the real in-person events that we're planning for the Flora and Fauna, which runs until June 30th. So we've got time. So the first artist to start us off is Paula Pittman Brown. And as I said, she was a big inspiration to me as to how the show might look, and this idea of it being animals that are right in front of us all the time that maybe we don't notice. And then the animals of our imagination, or how we could choose to see them. And I was struggling with this wording, and she was the one who helped me come up with the as close as our backyards as far as our imagination. So just to say, Paula is a teacher as well as being an artist. I mean, she's done a whole lot of types of work with humans and animals, but I think recently she's become very interested in creatures in their environment, whether it is humans or animals or in their interaction. And she does marvelous things with perspective to kind of twist things to make us question and to be curious. So Paula, I will share my screen and I give the stage to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about my work, and I'm thrilled to be in the show. This was a dream come true for me, as I have been painting and drawing animals for, geez, probably almost 10 years now. And a couple of twists on it that make it my idea is that it's often from the animal point of view instead of the human point of view. And I'm passionately interested in how wild animals coexist with us. And if they're in the forefront and the human activities in the background, it kind of twists things up. I'm passionate about the environment. I'm a narrative artist. I'm an environmental artist. I'm concerned about traffic and poisons on people's lawns. And I think it's a great idea, practical or not around here, to even consider land bridges, things like that. So I'm an outdoor person, and my initial idea was as close as your backyard. I go out every day. I run, I walk. Initially, I was walking my dog, and every time I saw a wild animal, I thought of it as an auspicious moment, like the great beauty of them, but maybe they were communicating something to me, saying that they could live on our streets with all our houses and our lots and our telephone poles and all the human activity that goes on. As I've developed this idea, it goes into the imagination where I start painting something and I create these elaborate stories in my mind of what these animals are thinking. I even have a piece once, what the crow thinks, and I have all these shapes coming out of the crow's head. Like, what does it sound like for a crow to think? And then I think about their sounds, I think about their activities. This particular piece is a few years old. My husband and I would go up to Montgomery, Vermont, and I saw this old house, this old farmhouse that was falling down. And I was fascinated by the twist in the perspective. And always a lover of animals, I put the deer in it in the foreground. You've got the cornfields in the back that are under the snow in winter, and how these animals are living in this space that's been abandoned by humans. A little funny side story with this, through COVID and all, we didn't go up there for 3 years. I said to my husband, let's go back and see the house, see if it's still there. So we went back a couple months ago. The house was still there. And lo and behold, in front of the house was a red truck. But when I painted it, there was no red truck. I needed to have something over in the left upper corner, and there I painted a red truck. And when I went to see it, there was a red truck. So reality and painting, they work really well together. So again, this is the animal point of view. It's winter. It's how they're living and struggling and coexisting with us. This is a more current piece. I call this Coat of Many Colors. In the last couple of years, what has transpired in my work, I keep a journal and a diary, and I write. And I write a lot and I look words up. And one of the fun things that I have done is I paint coyotes over and over again. And I think of them as, most people think of them as bad guys, independent, kind of skulking around, but they certainly have a beauty. But I do these paintings and then I research things afterwards, and usually I'm dead on. This coat of many color things comes from the biblical, comes from Dolly Parton's song, Coat of Many Colors. But for me, I started thinking about the energy, the life force, and how amazing animals are just like us, and how we all need to survive and live and continue on. So Coat of Many Colors has some literary significance, but also the energy and the life force of the animals. Now, some of my animals are starting to become airborne. And that's where it starts going into the imagination. I'm thinking that the whole idea of once you leave the earth and you go further, you go into another realm, and it talks about maybe a timelessness, maybe a spiritual quality. And this coyote is looking down on a rural environment. I really love stripes a lot. So a lot of my skies have exciting, I think, sunsets and such, and I kind of marry the colors together with it. See, this is starting to occur a number of times. I recently sold a piece of a coyote leaping. It was the first one of this series, and it was leaping over Queen Anne's lace, and below the Queen Anne's lace were the chocker block building block houses. and I'm putting the literary with it. I called it Leap of Faith, Queen Anne's Lace, building block houses all over the place. So I do have a narrative quality. I do have a almost like children's book illustration quality to them. This one I call transcendent. What I mean by this is life persists, life goes on, and this animal is going beyond. You've got the fields in the background, the buildup of all the homes. There's no lawns in the homes, but the animals transcend this. They continue to live. And I've got the falling leaves here to suggest this cycle of life in different seasons. And you see part of my fox here is disappearing, or maybe it's appearing. I don't know. Maybe it's being born and coming out, or maybe it's disappearing. I think that's up to the viewer. And since October, I've done a lot of ink blot pieces, and I've been enjoying them so much. I've done like 35 of them. And I start with an ink blot, like a Rorschach kind of thing, and I turn it into a piece of work. Keeping with my theme, it always has some suggestion of a suburban urban environment, but always with animals. In this piece here, I wanted to show you're looking through the grass that in the trees that belong to the natural world, and there's always the houses beyond. And the grasshopper, the fox, the dragonfly are living in this space. And in the foreground, I have a number of pieces. I went through a series of birds' nests where I collected things that humans left behind and birds make nests. So I am a bit of a collage artist too sometimes. So down at the bottom, there's some things that I've picked up along the way. A little piece of blue willow, which talks of domesticity, some plastic, and then a little piece of plastic over on the side. So that interplay back and forth between the man-made and the natural. Here's another one of my ink pieces. I thought, oh, these are like drawings, I'm going to do these quickly and get ideas. But I just got so into the levels and the spaces and the looking through and the looking through. One thing that I'm even getting more into now, I've decided that I really want to animate these animals' life. And the dance of life is an interesting thing, like Coat of Many Colors. I think that offers so many things. The dance of life offers so many things. So if you have this coyote and this deer, coyote's looking at the deer, and in the background they're dancing, and you've got the depth of the forest and the layers of that. But in the foreground, I put in these thorns, and these thorns are like, life isn't necessarily easy, and you're really going to be in trouble if you have an impossible love between a coyote and a deer.
I love that idea. I hadn't thought about it as an impossible love. Sort of, I was thinking of it as the dance of death.
Oh, no, I tend to be a positive person, and my paintings and drawings have two sides to it. I hope they're attractive. I hope they pull people in, but there's always a message. And sometimes it's not as apparent as other times.
Your work, the way you compose it, the depth of field or the strangeness of perspective definitely makes you stop and think. So you want to spend time with each image, and that's what I found from the first time I ever saw your work was, wait, what's going on here?
Multiple perspectives. Sometimes I juxtapose a 90-degree angle in an aerial view or a worm's eye view, and just to get whatever I want to say in it in different perspectives. A number of years ago, I did a series of impossible loves, and it was between birds and fish. Very short romances, but the birds and the fish would be kissing. And then I did a series where the birds are of the sky, cats are of the land, and fish are of the ocean, and how they work together too. But I'm interested in all that sort of stuff.
It's fantastic. It's reminding me of another artist in the show who's here tonight, Christian Breivik, who is either a PhD or a PhD candidate. Maybe we'll get him to tell us during the Q&A session, but his work it involves kinship and art and science and ecology and communication. So like you guys are kind of doing the same thing. different things. I love it.
The animal stories I found, when you're working all the time, different things reveal themselves to you. And I also was thinking of myself as an animal artist, but wait, no, I'm a landscape artist. No, wait, I'm an animal artist. And I've been bringing home on my walks all kinds of things like Queen Anne's lace and thistle and plants at different times of their growth, and been really more interested in incorporating that as well, bringing in the flora part of it.
Yeah, perfect. Flora and fauna.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paula.
Thank you for including me, Adine. I really appreciate it. Great
Oh,
fun.
thanks.
Thank you.
Bravo. The next artist who's going to share with us is Chelsea Brown, no relation. And Chelsea, like I said, she's a friend of the family, and she had this wonderful felting class during the pandemic, and it was so much fun to come together. It really felt like we were all there felting together, even though it was just virtual. And when I started to look at her work, she has a wonderful Instagram and she has an Etsy shop. I mean, she does everything from these sort of vividly realistic creatures that you just want to, oof, you want to touch them, but then you worry that, oh, maybe that will scare them or something. And then she does these fantastical, creative fantasy creatures. She's just done this punk frog, tadpole, and he has this cool jacket and like the Black Flag bars and
I have
everything.
him.
It's so
I'll show
cool.
you guys. Yeah.
That's cool. Anyway, Chelsea has some wonderful pieces in the show. Freya, Toki, Atlas, and three little mice who are not blind. They are vividly colorful. Maybe they are blind, but I'm glad I'm not because I love to see them. Take it away, Chelsea.
Oh, they're so sweet. That's just so sweet. I'm glad you had fun at my workshop. I need to do more. I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me. This has been pretty cool. Kind of an opportunity for me to do something bigger, which I've never actually really done before. Before this, the biggest thing I did was the dragon and then the polar bear. So these are definitely the biggest sculptures I've ever made. And because why would you make a giant wolf to keep in your house? There's not a lot of excuses one can come up with to make another like 3 foot tall I don't know thing. So I was excited to do it, and it definitely sort of propelled me into like I'll do an occasional check-in making like a realistic animal, but most of my stuff is very like anime inspired, kawaii, cute, and everything cute. I just love, if it's cute, it's great. But every few years I'll do a little bit of a check-in with myself. How realistic can I make this animal? So I'm getting there. There's always more that I can do, So after I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, getting pretty good. So this is Freya. She has a nice, strong Norse name. And my boyfriend was playing a video game called God of War, and it had a lot of like Norse elements in it. So this sort of inspired this creature. So still inspired by video games. How could you? I just can't get away from them, right? So maybe I should talk a little bit about like felting in general, like what it is. I have a huge mess here that no one can see, and in this mess is some
Messes are
wool.
good.
Yeah, it's crazy. So for this one, I used Icelandic wool locks. So there's a difference between a regular tuft of fiber that you would start with. So this is something that you would use in like the core of your project as sculpture. They're all over an aluminum wire armature. So I start with pictures and of the anatomy, so the skeleton, how it kind of looks, and then you make it vaguely in wire, aluminum wire, so it will be posable. And then you basically just wrap strips of the fiber around each thing. So let me grab this pen here. I can show you as an example. So you would wrap it around like that, and then you would start stabbing it. So a felting needle looks like this. Stabbing, it sounds so so intense. And it kind of is sometimes. It's very cathartic. I don't know if anybody's ever felt it before. I know Aideen has. She did, her gnome is definitely fantastic, but the stabbing is part of the process, you know. It's like you get all this, yeah, you get this out. It's funny because I'm not like a super patient person, which is bizarre considering what I do takes hundreds of hours. But anything else like knitting, no, can't do it. Sewing, I don't want to. But this, for some reason, it's very meditative, and you get something out of it. Not, that's not just, oh, I made this cool thing. But needle looks like this. It's like my makeup tutorial moment here. So it's really sharp, right? So sharp. So every piece has a little bit of my DNA in it, literally. My blood, sweat, and my tears. It's all in there. But super sharp. It has these little barbs. Can you guys see those? It's hard to, I'm not very good at this. And a wool fiber has barbs in it as well. So each individual hair will have barbs in. So what it does is basically when you stab, it'll like pull it'll catch on these barbs and pull it together. And as you stab and stab and stab, it gets firmer and firmer and firmer until you can make shapes and sculpt with it. Basically like clay. It doesn't seem like clay, but it really is. This was one of the first things I ever made. It is so hard. Oh my God. It's like a rock. Like I stabbed this thing till, you know, you literally can't, I don't even think I could get a felting needle in this. Right. And it's just so firm. They can get so firm. So a lot of like, as you learn and grow with felting, is like how to make the animal feel real. So when I got there, Rebecca was like, can I hold it? I was like, yeah, you can hold it. She's like walking around with it like this, petting it. They feel real, you know. It's super cool. And the irony of this piece too is that it's a wolf made from sheep's clothing. So I found that pretty funny. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, here she is. Oh, so Icelandic locks. I don't have any examples of those, but I have these hot pink ones. So wool can also come like this, depending on the type of sheep. It's really curly and spirally and fantastic, makes great hair. And basically what I did was I carded, yeah, we've got some locks on Nadine's gnome there. He's got some nice locks. Those were Icelandic as well. So I actually drum carded them. I'm hesitant to take you guys over to the drum carder, but if you want to see it, we can look at it. It's just basically this big, huge drum with tines on it, like sharp little tines, like a dog hairbrush. And there's another one, and you take a crank and you crank it, and you pull all the fibers in, and it blends all the colors. So for these two, I just gotten this drum carder, so that was very exciting. So I used that for all
Is
of
that
them to
something maybe
blend
you
my own
could
colors.
bring? Is that something maybe you could bring for the workshop, Chelsea?
Yeah, I could bring the drum carder. It's small enough. It's a mini drum carder. I could bring it and people could see it because they're like, is these tools are like, something else that's really cool about felting is the tradition that you're participating in. These tools are so old, you know, like everything that we use is like, you know, at least I think the first felting machine was used to make insulation, so needle felting in particular, but wet felting, which I have examples of too. Here's my hat. So this is the hat I made. Wet felting is like thousands of years old, so it's just like hot water and soap, and then you right. So that is also something that I do, and I love combining them. It always keeps me, you know, keeps me on my toes. If I get bored with one part of it, then I can go on to the next part, and there's so many different facets: spinning, dyeing, all kinds of things. So we can go to the next picture. I was worried I wouldn't have enough to talk about, but then I remembered I never stopped talking. So all right, so this is Toki. This was so cool that I got to make this, and also so frustrating, every every part of it. But when you're done, you're just like, wow. It's almost like I can't even believe that I made that. I don't know if you guys ever feel like that. It's like, did I do that? I don't know. Somebody else must have possessed me while I. But same type of fiber. I hand carded all this stuff, but I use merino, which is a really long, floofy, type of sheep, super smooth. So, and it's also the one that's used most commercially. So any sweater you might have that's wool is probably a merino sweater or like a hat. It's also like a marketing tool that they use. It's the softest and the best, which, you know, I'm inclined to agree, but there are other fibers that are just as soft, and Gotland is one of them. Baby alpaca, crazy soft. Everything that I get is ethically sourced too, because, you know, sheep are important to me, right? I love animals, so it's cool that they give me the opportunity to make other animals out of them. So this one, I use like a wax hardener on the nose, and yeah, I shingle the fur on. So basically, like shingles on a roof, you would take each tuft and then you stab that little tuft in, and then you cut it. Or you can cut it first and then stab it in, however you want to do. But I've become pretty proficient like cutting hair. So if anybody wants me to give you a haircut, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you definitely don't want to. But I've gotten pretty good at cutting the hair, and then you can brush it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But everything in this is posable, all his fingers, all his toes. And yeah, we can go to the next one. This is Atlas. So this is wet felting and needle felting. So I wet felted the shell. I use a sander. So you sand it with hot water and soap, and it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and becomes this flat sheet, and then you shape it. So that's how you do the hats too. And then neps are like a byproduct of wool processing. It's something that comes off of the big drum carders, and then those are all those little like thingies, you guys, the bumpy thingies. So those are what that is. And the head of this one completely is not attached to the body, so it's very funny. I was like, I should make sure that I put this in the description, because if somebody purchases it and the head falls out, they'll probably be concerned. But it's just so it can retract into the shell. It's like a tube that I made with pre-felt, which is another thing. I could talk about wool all day, but I won't bore you with that. You can smoosh it into the shell.
Yeah, we all need to go back into our shell sometime.
Yeah, I was like, how is this gonna work? You know, and I was like, I could put a wire and you could pull it, and then I was like, that's bizarre. So we'll just not attach it at all. So that was, I loved making this turtle. It was so fun. The skin is wet felted too, so you needle felt the inside, and then you drape the wet felted skin over, and that's how you get the nice wrinkles. So yeah, the last one, here's the Mies. I love them. They're based off of the old field mouse, and a lot of these I like to share my secrets. Most of them, not all of them, but I like to share my secrets. If anybody's interested in needle felting, I use Serafina Fiber Arts, where I get all my fiber, and she has fantastic tutorials. So a lot of the armatures for the simpler like woodland creatures, they're all based off of stuff that I learned from her, and it's all on YouTube. It's all fantastic. So these were based off old field mice, but obviously had to have my own Chelsea twist in which I made them. I was like, what if there was a bag of Skittles, but they were mice? And then I made them. So there they are. They're really cute. They're all fully posable too. The tail holds them up. And yeah, I don't know. I always kind of go back to making mice, and these are definitely my favorite mice that I have made. One last thing before I go, well, not go, but I stop talking, is that I am going to be donating 15% of the proceeds to conservation efforts, just because I was thinking, how could I tie this into what I, want to happen? I can't go to Borneo and like volunteer. That's just the bugs. No, but I can send them money. So I adopted an orangutan. Her name is Topan. So if I sell anything, then 15% of the proceeds will go to her care. She is so cute. So thank you
Oh,
guys so much.
well, send me the link. Is there some way we can see her? I can
Oh yeah, you can
post
see
it.
her. You can
Yeah.
adopt her too.
Oh, there. Well, she's going to be doing pretty well
She's the
after
best
that.
in her
Everybody's going
class.
to be like, I want an orangutan.
She's the best in her class. Yeah. She's so cute.
Oh,
They look like little old men.
that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
I love them.
The your mice go so beautifully with Stuart Dunkel's mice.
Yes.
You guys had, he said you guys had a chance to talk. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
met in person or were chatting
Yeah, I
online or
was telling him
something.
about the Skittles.
Oh, there you go. Definitely. I think maybe he's done a mouse with Skittles, it seems
That's
to
what I said.
me.
I said, "Can you paint one with some like Skittles or M&Ms?" And he was like, "I'll leave it to you."
Aw, there you go. His mice have been with just about everything under the rainbow.
They're so cute. I just love them. That was awesome. So
Thank you so much, Chelsea.
you're
It's
welcome.
so
Thanks for
much
having me.
fun. It is such a tactile thing. I had so much fun with it. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with the mushroom craft that you're going
Oh
to do
yeah, the
in the
mushrooms.
gallery. It's still the dates to be decided, but I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of donations, I just wanted to put a word in for another artist. Connor S. Thompson has a photograph in the show of a sunflower and a little goldfinch, and he has special cards that he's made. People purchase them. 100% is going to go to the Doug Flutie Foundation for Autism. They're partnering with a doctor in Ukraine. This is called Project Hope, and it's going to be sending funds and materials to families in Ukraine who have kids on the autism spectrum. So definitely something to think about. I've posted the link on Facebook and Instagram. You can also go to Connor's Instagram, which is Spectrum Inspired Photography. So Chelsea's animals and an orangutan or Ukraine families. So wonderful. I'm going to check in now with Jean Mooney to see if now is a good time for her to speak. She's sort of doing two meetings at once.
Yep, this is a good time,
This is
actually.
good. Okay, I'm going to have to sort of go forward through things because I had your slides at the end. Preview time, previews of everybody else. Oops, there you go. So Jean Mooney is a local photographer who is, what do you say, a curious observer with omnivorous interests. So that's a great
Yeah,
flora
curious
and
observer.
fauna. Flora and
Right.
fauna. You photograph them both. And what I love particularly is this. I think of Mount Auburn Cemetery as Boston's backyard. I mean, there's so much green space and the Emerald Necklace, but when I come home to Boston, I always want to come to Mount Auburn. And when I'm away, because I live in Maine, I keep tabs every day because Jean's always posting these beautiful photographs of whatever's happening. And I love it so much. Thank you, Jean.
Well,
So
thank
Jean
you for
has,
having me.
like,
So my
photograph.
photography really is, I'm gonna mute my other meeting here. My photography really is a lot about sharing on, as much as people kind of put down social media, Instagram and Facebook, but my photography is really a lot about sharing in the moment and getting people to get outside to enjoy the moment. Because I feel like if I've seen something, I want to share that with other people so that they might go out and see it. And so talk about being local, our own backyards where people can just go over to Mount Auburn or go down to Rock Meadow or go out on a walk that's nearby to let people know that, these things are happening in nature. And I do spend a tremendous amount of time at Mount Auburn. And I started volunteering there about 5 years ago when I retired from working at the State House. And I got involved in the citizen science program there and got involved in documenting, the phenology, which is sort of the cyclical time of flora and fauna as it relates to climate and climate change. So studying the emergence of plants that I was one project. Then I got involved in salamanders and then pollinator visitor studies. And I found that I would post these pictures and people would like, oh, I have to go over and see that now. Or people away in California would say, oh, thank you for sharing this because I miss being there. And so my photography became a way of just sharing the beauty throughout this throughout the seasons. And so I've just continued doing it. And what I've also discovered is really photography as a way of getting involved in community and meeting people. And that's one of the things that's happened at Mount Auburn is while being a citizen science and collecting information. And actually one of the projects I work on is a photographic one where we photograph flower visitors, is meeting people there at Mount Auburn, but then meeting people through social media where I have now become friends and learn from birders and gardeners, and it's fabulous. And I get to know people on Instagram through their photography of flora and fauna. And then I'll be over at Mount Auburn and I'll see someone with a camera and we'll be sharing about, the birds there or the trees, or have you seen that gorgeous blooming, flourishes azalea that's, come up first time in the spring. And then I'll say, are you on Instagram? And they'll go, yeah, what's your handle? And it's like, oh, you're so-and-so. Oh, you're okay. And all of a sudden we make this connection where we become friends and followed and learned from each other. And then you meet people. And it's been really terrific. And so that's really what inspires me, is to share in the moment and put things out so people will see what's going on. This particular photograph is actually in my own backyard, my own garden, which is this Lestrantia that I took. So this represents my own backyard in the show. I don't know what you've got next, Adine. So here is Mount Auburn in the fall. And it's just, I go there year round because there's so much incredible interest in beauty, structure in the winter time when things aren't blooming. And then, in the fall, where there's all sorts of, color and, animals that are still there. And I just love the particular texture and light in this picture. And again, it's brings in the whole concept of the phenology and the study of trees and changes in trees throughout the year. And so this is sort of, part of that of witnessing how plants, change. So that's a lot about that photograph.
It also reminds me a little of Paula Pittman Brown's, that you've got this depth of field of the layers that you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you. So here we are with our flora and our fauna. So I spent a lot of time over, I love birds over there. This is actually wrapping up my migration time, but here we have a heron. There are always herons. There's several bodies of water over at Mount Auburn. And oftentimes the heron are there and they're so used to people that they'll simply pose and enjoy their time. And so this is one of the heron that I saw. I believe this was last fall, but I've seen heron in a snowstorm as well down at Willow Pond. People will share. That's the other thing I enjoy is, people will say, oh, did you see the heron today? Oh, yes. Or did you see this today? And so when you post, pictures, it encourages people that, oh yeah, I want to go over and see if that heron is over there. Well, I saw the heron at Willow Pond and I saw the heron over at Halcyon Lake. So again, it's really about sharing what's in our own backyard and encouraging people to visit these places. I don't have picture. What do we have next? I don't think I have a pandemic. This is actually down at Rock Meadow. Another place that I have a victory garden down there. And so this was inspired by, I do this flower visitor study at Mount Auburn, but I also observe, all sorts of pollinators on plants. And this is a honeybee, but there are so many different types of bees and insects and pollinators that that's another project that I do. And so I enjoy photographing pollinators as well. And this was actually also down at Rock Meadow, although this could be a scene at Mount Auburn as well. A big bumblebee on milkweed. And this is, again, you'll find this at Mount Auburn as well, but this was at someone's milkweed down at Rock Meadow that I happened to observe. And I just love that this works with some of the other bees that are in the show, because I just love that artwork that we'll hear from Amy later on. So
Amy Akers coming up next.
Yeah.
But there's one more.
Yeah. Okay, so this is actually this is in Mount Auburn at one of the garden areas, and this is a sweat bee. And so again, I was over there observing the flowers, and this pollinator came, and that's the one thing. It's not just there are all sorts of different types of things that visit flowers, and I just love this metallic bright color of this sweat bee on the vibrancy of this flower. And I've just actually was at Mount Auburn yesterday to begin the next season of flower visitor study. And I actually observe a lot of the meadow up at on the tower up at Mount Auburn, and we'll begin photographing all of the visitors there. So I might go out and take a couple hundred photographs in one day, and then have to sort through and decide which ones I may post for the study and put on Instagram. Or put on iNaturalist, because all of these things go into study. So that's one of the things I enjoyed about my photography, is that photography is a means of actually participating in climate study and climate change, because our photographs of flora and fauna can go into a scientific database and be used by people across the world and locally to know what's happening with seasonality. So this is a picture that can be posted, and other people will come in and know that they're sweat bees. Or if I post other pictures of bees, there will be people on iNaturalist. If anyone, I can tell people more about that if they're interested, or you can email me. But you'll have people wanting to know what kind of bee that is. I mean, there are hundreds of types of bees. And you'll actually get conversations and scientists, commenting on the photos you post. So that's another way, again, of being involved in a community of people who enjoy the outdoors, and encouraging people to enjoy the outdoors. And one very gratifying thing that I did, which I'll close with, is that during the pandemic, people were really wanting to go outdoors a lot, but a lot of parks and places, were also closed. And I was invited by Mount Auburn as a couple of people who were actually allowed to go into the cemetery when it was closed during COVID, to photograph what was happening in there, because people weren't able to see the spring flowering cherries or the magnolias, and these things that people dearly, want to go to do. And I was able to photograph them and share them. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see a lot of those things from Mount Auburn. But it was an opportunity to let people know that this beauty that they couldn't see was still happening. And it was very gratifying for folks to they said, "Oh, I'm so jealous you're there." But that jealousy was more about, being able to share in the beauty. And that, to me, is really what my photography is about, is sharing what's out there in the moment, putting it out there. I try not to obsess too much about all the technical things. And I know that if I had even a better camera, I could have more wonderful birding photography, but then I follow those people and I enjoy their photography. And as well. So to me, it's this art form is about community and encouraging people to enjoy the natural world. So thank you.
Thank you, Jean. That's just so wonderful. I love all the intersections, the idea about art and science, information, observing. I mean, all these things that it's observing and communicating is so important. One of the photographers in the show, Rick Olick, is going to have a talk, and he does wildlife photography, and he has a wonderful long lens. So you might want to chat with him about.
I know. I'm jealous that I go out and I'm with a lot of people there who have a fabulous long lenses and birding and migration. And I keep on wanting to do that. And I go, oh, at some point I will. So I tend to focus more on the trees and plants and leave the long shots, the birds. But it's on the list to go to invest in a really nice long lens.
It's all really meaningful. I don't know whether you guys know, but in the virtual website, when you click on an image and you see the bigger image and you get the description beneath, the artist's name is always a link. Sometimes it'll send you to their website, sometimes it'll send you to the Instagram. So like Jean was saying today about her Instagram, you can easily find it if you go to the virtualbga.org. Look at her photographs and click on her name, and it'll take you there, and you can get more information about all the other things that she's doing, as well as all the other artists. So thanks so much, Jean, and thank you for the pictures of Boston. It keeps me grounded.
Thank you, Aideen.
Jean, you make the bugs look cute.
Oh yes, oh, wonderful. Well, speaking of making bugs look cute and beautiful, our next artist, Amy Aker, has these wonderful pieces about bees in the show. She has a BFA from Massachusetts College of Art, and she's a print designer and an art teacher, but she's retired now, and she does her work at Western Ave Studios. It's number 422 in Lowell, and these wonderful bee prints. I adore them, Amy.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, let's see, I just want to, whoops, let me go back.
Now.
Back through the preview, what's coming, here we go. So here is your work in the show, and then at the end of the three of them are the extra photographs you sent me, so let me know what I can show.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I was so happy and surprised to be, invited into this show. It just really made me happy to do that and to see familiar people. And Aideen, I hadn't met you until tonight, so hello.
Hello.
And to see Paula and my friend Lori Simcoe, who's also at the studio. She's across the hall from me. I just switched studios, so now I'm in 459. And so I've been at Western Ave Studios for close to 10 years, but most of the time I was teaching. And I have to say, I am not a public speaker, so I'm kind of nervous, and I apologize. I'll make it kind of short. But at any rate, I was a member of the studio, and I would go in. I shared a studio with a couple of other art teachers, and we would go in and play. It was a recreational thing, and it was an enjoyable thing, but I didn't spend very much time there. And then once I retired, then, shortly after that, the pandemic came and we couldn't go in really. So I took a few different classes with Adria Arch, and that's where I fell in love with jelly printing. And Jean's work reminds me, one of the things she had us do is go out and on walks and photograph without editing, without judging, just photograph things that we were interested in nature and on our walks. And it was really amazing because a lot of the photographs would either the composition or the colors or something would pop up in my work later. And it was just really kind of interesting the way that the two things fit together. But anyway, so one of the things, another thing that Adria taught us was how to register 3 papers at once. And it was really great, doing the jelly prints, and we'd have 3 at the same time every time. And then I had this stack of, there were some successful pieces and some not so successful pieces, but things that I liked and I kept. And I thought, well, I may be able to use those later at collage. And I'm still using those pieces. In fact, the background of this bee piece is from one of Adria's classes, but the bee work was from a different teacher. Her name is Stephanie Stigliano, and that was through a later class or more recent class through Truro Center for the Arts. And it was on endangered animals. My mother had bees. So I was, I chose bees as one of my animals. And so anyway, I can show you some of the stencils and the stamps I used for that. This background was also created in Adria's class. And I really liked the background, but I didn't think it was a successful print on its own. And those 2 bees are stamps that I made. One might be a stencil. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But I can show you a little bit later about the process. This is a combination of many different prints. It's layered. And the top layers are a translucent mulberry paper. So you can see through to the layers underneath. And the back piece where you can see the yellow, sort of a tan colored floral thing. I was ready to throw that away. And then I thought, I don't know, I'm kind of glad I kept it. And then I started cutting out my, so the pink, brighter pink pieces were one of the 3 prints that was a bolder print. And then the ones that are faded, those were ghost prints. And those are layered on top of, one of my earlier prints. And then the bees, I can show you, I can show you if you, okay, so you can see that you can't see my arrow, right? Can you see that? Oh, well, anyway.
No, but
Oh, okay. Some of these stencils.
But you can see mine.
Upper left.
Can you see mine?
That's all right. So the upper left shows cardstock that I cut out and made stencils with. And those bees were done that way. And on the right, and down below, I just showed you the speedy carve. These bees were carved with, like a linoleum carver. And I rolled the ink on and stamped them. And then the right-hand side, you can see the images of the very first upper left on that one is, well, on the right image, but there's 4 pieces here. I created these stencils on freezer wrap paper. And the one on the upper left is the very background. I printed from that. And then you'll see if you go back, you don't go back, but I mean, if you were to go back to the pink floral piece, it's called Bees Here Now because they may not always be with us because of the colony collapse. And then, they are endangered, bees are. So we hope they're going to be here for a long time, but we've got to take good care of them. But anyway, yeah, you'll see these leaves in in that image as well. And then this here at the lower right is cut pieces of a floral wrap that I ordered it, but a friend of mine got flowers at Whole Foods Market wrapped in this stuff. And I love it. I love the texture. And that's the texture of the flowers you see in that picture. So let's see. Yeah, I really like that. One of the things I love the most about jelly printing is that it's a very responsive, intuitive process. And I'm always surprised at what comes out. And, it just, I lose myself in the process. And it's so much fun to do that. I love that. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say, but
Well, it's wonderful to have some sense of your process and that you've kept things that at first you thought were nothing, but then
yeah,
you figured out how to incorporate them. They were still inspiration. They were just looking for the right place to manifest themselves, right?
yeah,
It's beautiful. Like hearing about the process really helps me pay attention to more of the details here.
thank you.
It's really wonderful. I just love it.
The
Thank you
show
so
looks
much.
fantastic. Richard did a great job hanging.
You sure did.
Yeah,
You
and
sure
and
did.
I'm just very pleased to be part of this really great group of artists. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful to have your work here. I love how it fits in well with some of the other things. It's particularly, I'm so happy Jean went and then we could do you because that Jean's photos of the different bees and
Yeah, that worked
was
well.
great. Thanks so much, Amy. So you just mentioned Richard, and so he is our next artist who's going to be showing. He's actually I showed that postcard from the old show. Richard was in this show, so it gives you some idea. He's been around since the beginning.
Thank you.
And wonderful, colorful, vibrant images that really helped pull this show together. And I'm so happy to have him here to talk tonight. Let me find your work, Richard. Here you go.
Okay.
I've got the
but
two in the show, and then I've got the other ones that you asked me to put in as well.
let's put the Galapagos ones up first.
Okay.
Let me say a few words by way of introduction. That's fine. So hello, everybody. There are not a lot of familiar faces in the gallery tonight, which is, I guess, so a word of introduction for starting, which is the thing about me that the people who know me well know. I'm mostly about painting people, right? Not just portraits, but narrative storylines with people in them, or iconographies, or what have you. But it's been my experience that humanity is such a rich source of inspiration that I very rarely turn my attention to any other subject matter. My point being, flora and fauna are not my bag. But as it happens, about, I'm thinking 8 years ago, maybe even longer, my wife and I took a trip to the Galapagos. And as it turns out, in the Galapagos, there are no people. And I had packed a sketchbook. So I resolved to make the best of the situation. And out of that experience came 3 paintings, one of which is there in front of you. And the 3 were basically a collection of animals that we spotted when we were visiting the Galapagos. The creatures of the air, the birds, and then there's another one, and we can just move right past it to the creatures of the sea. You see in there one of the famous maritime iguanas, the only place on the planet where iguanas swim and even dive for food. And then there was the Galapagos land. So there's some of the creatures that we spotted in the Galapagos. And here's Alaska that's just been randomly thrown in. So those 3 paintings were the basis for a series of paintings that I've now continue to this day. They are collections of what I call my menageries or my bestiaries, collections of creatures spotted in faraway places. Before I talk about, well, let's see. As you can see from, can we go back? Yeah, well, that's fun. That's good. So as you can see, I'm kind of a deliberate maximalist, which is, I don't know, it's a simple-minded version of this proposition, is that I like to cram the canvas with imagery. My therapist tells me that's a certain sign of, schizophrenia, but, what are you going to do? So these are all the critters that were spotted in those places. Let me move on to the actual pieces in the show. Forgive me, But each of these paintings in the show, and that's the first one, the Amazon, that's good, are a continuation of that series. And again, you can see the maximalism. There's what are they called? I can't remember the name of this creature. Jaguar. So, the schizophrenia is not the only mental problem I'm struggling with. But you can see the jaguar. There's a caiman in the water behind. Caimans are small crocodiles. There's an anaconda, which I confess, we only spotted the anaconda in captivity in one of the villages we visited. But, it's my painting, so I say what goes in it. And there's peccaries in the distant background and spoonbills, you can see. And that little blue frog is quite large in the foreground, but in the actual Amazon, these are the famous poison arrow frogs. They're just as big as that. They're just tiny. And so on. Relating the paintings in the show to the theme of the show a little bit. So the theme of the show, if you recall, is as close as our backyard, as far away as our imagination. And these are plainly not backyard creatures, right? It's not backyard flora and fauna. But on the other hand, it's not imaginary creatures either. These are all real life creatures. And in fact, the kind of standard I kept for myself is they're all creatures that I actually saw on one of these trips. So the imagination part of this, I think, comes in the form of, well, let me put it another way. These are plainly not plein air paintings, right? These are all done in the studio. You're not going to find in nature a collection like this, a menagerie like this in real life. So the imagination, I think, for me, and in this process comes in creating imaginary landscapes that I can then populate with the creatures that I saw. And for me, and why don't we take a look at the Icelandic one, which I think is probably next, right? So I lean particularly heavily on imagination for this particular one, which I actually want to talk a little bit about. But I'll say by way of introduction that, so painters, if we're lucky, we find an audience that will spend a couple of minutes, maybe even 5 or 10, enjoying our paintings, admiring it, soaking it up, studying the details. We spend hours painting the things, right? So it's bound to be the case that we put a lot more into every painting than anybody is likely to take away from it. And everybody understands that, that's fine. But it means that a lot of the time we spend painting, we spend playing with ideas that we don't really expect the audience to pick up on. And all of my paintings, and Adine, I know, knows a lot of my work, are a whole lot bigger and a whole lot more detailed than the ones that we're seeing this evening. And there's just a lot of stuff in there that satisfies me, but it's not really intended to satisfy anybody else. And this is kind of an example of that. So Magnus Snorsson, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Did I get it right? Icelandic is not my strong suit. And Bert Halstead,
You got it.
Did a show together a couple of months ago, was it? Really magnificent photography show. And Magnus, who is a native Icelander, told me that the only real native creature that is native to Iceland is the, pardon?
Mammal.
Mammal, the only, good, thank you. The only mammal native to Iceland is the Arctic fox, which you see in the upper left-hand corner there. The Arctic fox has got incredibly white fur, with the result that against a snowy landscape, they all but disappear. It's camouflage, but in this painting, you can really basically only see the eyes and the nose. The rest has disappeared into the snow behind. Then you also notice there's a orca whale that stretches sort of from the top all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. But if you look closely at the orca's face, you see that it's also the body of the, again with the names.
Puffin.
Puffin, thank you. It's only a matter of time. Enjoy me while you can.
We do.
And I'll be drooling over my peas and carrots. Anyway, so the puffin's body is also the orca's head. And then the orca stretches back. You can see its body has become a road. There are sheep everywhere in Iceland, everywhere. And so you'll often, if you're driving around the island, encounter them, a flock of sheep being herded along a road. So there are sheep being herded along the road in Iceland. And then in the field next to it, there's kind of an echo of the same little puffs of white. Everywhere you go in Iceland, especially at a particular time of year, there are fields full of baled hay, and they have very distinctive bales of, they look like marshmallows, and they're always sealed in white plastic. They don't do a lot of agriculture in Iceland. It's a very rugged climate. There's not a lot of vegetables grown there, but they do grow a lot of hay because they have livestock that they have to feed through very long, very cold winters. So there's that. And then you can see there's an elk in the background there whose antlers kind of also contain the face of a ice flow, and the aurora borealis behind that. There's a Icelandic horse there. I don't know if anybody's knows about us. Icelandic horses are quite compact little horses, but they have very long manes. And when tousled by the wind, and it's always windy in Iceland, they look a lot like rock stars. They're really beautiful horses. And then you can see there's an Icelandic seal poking its head out of the water, and the absolutely omnipresent, ubiquitous lupins. Again, Iceland is a very rugged terrain, and it doesn't support a lot of biodiversity, right? So there are places in Iceland where for miles in all directions, all you see is a single plant, the lupin, and they just spread over the landscape for really, for as far as the eye can see, for miles and miles, driving along 10, 15 minutes, you're still going through a field of beautiful purple lupins. So that is also sort of represented there. That's a lot of words. I had, as I said, a lot of fun painting this painting. It's not my best work, but it was a lot of fun to paint, and for the reasons that I've given. And that is more or less all I have to say about that. So,
That's marvelous, Richard. It's just marvelous. Thank you for mentioning Bert and Magnus's show.
it was a spectacular show, and it's in the archives. It's in the gallery's archives. If you didn't get a chance to see it, you really should. It was, I think, also very nicely conceived. I won't explain the conception, but go and take a look. It's wonderful.
Go take a look. It's at the virtualbga.org. We've got the show. We've got videos of all the various talks and things. And I was just remembering we had an Icelandic American author whose name Heidi Herman, whose mother took this wonderful paragliding flight over Vik, which is the little town there, right underneath the Arctic Fox. So we have a video of that. You can see Heidi's 90-year-old mother parasailing up above Vik. So next painting, Richard, you put her in.
What? Is there another, what?
Oh,
I put her in? Oh, I'm sorry. I was
you could put her in your next painting.
Yeah, no, well, all right. Okay. At some point, somebody's got to grease the palm a little bit about this.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Thank you so
Good.
much, Richard.
Right, no problem.
Bravo. And the show was very well hung. Everybody, thank you, Richard Hill.
That's a dangerous phrasing. I think you should, but thank you.
Hung. Very, very well put together and installed. How's that?
Endowed show.
There you go. Okay, this is so much fun. I'm sorry, Alyssa, to put you here last, but we really want to hear all about your wonderful pieces. I found you on Instagram and was instantly just taken by these shapes and forms of these cut out sort of abstract, natural images. It reminds me of when I was a little girl. Half of our lawn was unmown, and my mother would let me make tunnels through it. And it would, it's going into your art. I want to shrink myself down and go into it because it's just so wonderful. These are these sort of glorious abstract cathedrals to nature. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And I will hunt down your pictures here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I guess I'll give a little intro about how I got into this, and then we can look through my work. I don't know if I have anything specific to say about each of these pieces, but maybe I can reiterate something I said. So I have not been doing this paper cutting and collaging forever. I have been interested in collage for some time, but the dimensional element of it actually began in 2020. So early 2020, I was making these really abstract nature floral drawings. And actually it was during quarantine when I had plenty of time, and I decided to cut into those drawings and mold them, fold them, see how shadow and light interacted with them. And that developed into this, what's in the show. These, I don't know what to call them really, 3D collages, sculptural paintings. I don't really know. So if you have any ideas, you can help me with that. So that's how these pieces were born. I really am excited and challenged by the 3D process. There's a slight dimensionality to them, and that's never been my strong suit, but I know paper really well. So paper felt like an approachable medium to try and challenge myself when it comes to things that maybe pop out from the surface. And I really enjoy the multi-step process of this. It's the first step in how I go about this now. This process is very much developed, but the first step for me is building an inventory of paper pieces. So I'll spend a day drawing, painting, and cutting these little pieces of paper, and I build an inventory. So I have a drawer in my flat files of all these different little pieces of various sizes, colors. One day I'll probably paint a giant drawing paper pink, and then I'll come up with all sorts of blades of grass, leaves, petals. I'll cut those out and add that to my inventory. And once I have a solid inventory I feel good about of all these pieces, it comes to composition. I'll work on maybe 2, 3, 4 pieces at a time next to each other, or I'll work on one for a little while, set it aside, but there's a certain relatedness and conversation within those pieces that's really exciting to me. And I actually kind of see that in the work that's in this show, is there's a bit of a conversation or relationship between some of these pieces. And so that's kind of the head work, and the eye work is composing. It's very tiring in a strange way. And then comes the adhering, or the kind of putting everything together. So I'll use archival glue, and I'll also use thread. If you go to the gallery and look really closely, especially at those bigger pieces, you will see stitches, and that I've used stitches to keep that dimensional structure. It feels stronger to me than the glue that I use. So on some of those larger pieces, like on this one that we see here, that bright yellow piece that's shooting up from the back, that's stitched and held down with stitches and archival glue. That piece, that putting everything together, gluing it, the assembly piece is, it's not so much brain challenging as physically challenging, because I'm working with such tiny things. So I'm using the opposite side of a brush sometimes to hold things in place while they adhere. If my finger just moves, I don't mean it to, it could mean that a piece, I have to recreate it again. So there's definitely a challenge to it, but I like that challenge. I like the different levels of challenge, and also the enjoyment and satisfaction that comes out of those. When it comes to the content of these pieces, I think that actually the theme of the show, as close as our backyard, as far as our imagination, really resonates with me, because some of these shapes I see in nature just from observation. So like going on a walk, especially during quarantine, I think of Jean's work, where we had to pay attention and find ways to pay attention to those things that were close to us. They're a lot from observation, but I feel like there's a certain nostalgia that I'm trying to stir up in the viewer as well. And a lot of these, I want these to resonate, the feeling of them to resonate in some way. I think these pieces come somewhere in my memory, plus my imagination equals a piece. I think that's what comes out, plus observation, and that's what comes out. And that's my hope, is that these pieces will stir nostalgia, memory, whether that's of a backyard someone grew up in, like yours, Aideen, or you know, a bouquet from a momentous event. That's what I'm seeking to do with these pieces. Is I don't want them just to be mind exercises for me, or, you know, they are exciting compositions to look at, but I hope to stir the heart in a way. And it can be joyful. It can be also a little bit nostalgic or sorrowful, but I think those can exist together. So that's a little bit of what I'm seeking to do. Yeah, so we can just click through them. I don't know if I have much to say about them other than playing with a color palette that I find enjoyable, having moments of surprise, like that bright red on the right is really fun for me. Shape relationship, you'll see certain shape motifs throughout these. I'm also interested in the negative space for sure surrounding them. That's really exciting to me. Is, do I want a piece to really kind of take up the frame, or do I want there to be a negative space or a silence that really sings in these? So yeah. And thank you for looking.
Oh, they're just wonderful. I love that this is down and to the left. This is more centered. I love the title. I mean, it's untitled, but for E, the sun and the big green lawn. Talk about nostalgia. I love that idea of observation and nostalgia, imagination. It's a wonderful combination of things. They're just beautiful. And please go look on Alyssa's Instagram, which again is easy to find. I mean, you could go to Instagram and just say Alyssa Lincoln. I think that's what the tagline.
I'll be there. Yeah.
But it's also, it is her name in the show at the virtual BGA is the link. And you just posted a video of you working on one of those big sheets of paper that you
That's how I start. Yeah.
And then you're drawing in all the little shapes and stuff. And I've seen other ones of you cutting.
Yeah.
And I can understand why it would be tiring, but it's just, it's
very rewarding.
Yeah. Your diligence, it all comes together in this beautiful way. So, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I found you. You're in Beverly, and you're an art teacher too.
Yes, I teach private lessons out of my studio. Yep. I'm in Beverly. Yep.
Okay. Well, good. Pay attention, people. Wouldn't this be fun to, or whatever? I mean, all the things you do. This is just the newest. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to open the floor now. I know we've run a little longer than I intended, but this was all just so interesting. If people would like to ask questions or make comments, I will stop sharing so we can all see each other, and you can raise your hand or a virtual hand and unmute yourself and say what you like, or ask your question. Anybody? I know I had questions as we were going along, but it's been so much information, my brain has gotten a little tired out. But I love how everything comes together. Things have conversations, like Alyssa was saying, her pieces have, as you're creating them, the different layers have conversations. But so much of the work in this show really interrelates in a beautiful way. And I always love the interplay of science and art. My stepson goes to the College of the Atlantic, where all the degrees that they get are in human ecology. And I think we could all stand to get a human ecology degree. Hey, Derry.
Hi there.
Hi. Thank you for coming.
I've been quiet because the cat keeps meowing, and I'm trying to cook dinner while I'm listening because we ate really late last night because of the BAA meeting. But this looks like a fabulous show, and I can't wait to see everything. And I'm very interested in all the work of the artists that have been speaking tonight. So thanks for doing this. And it all looks terrific. So yes. And the only other thing I want to say is, in case anyone is interested, the call for entries for the Belmont Art Association's Transforming Belmont 2022 project will be going out very soon. And I just got funding squared away a couple of days ago. So I'm writing it up, but people should stay tuned to the BAA's Facebook page, and it will be posted on our website. And hopefully the BGA can help, and the BAA and the BGA can publicize it through our newsletters. So we are going to be having 4 boxes this year, and I'm currently thinking along the lines of, without getting too political, because that might run astray of the town has to approve designs. So I think things need to be, pretty, quote unquote. But I'm thinking climate change, environment, and social justice snuck into, snuck into the decorative. So
that's what art is all about, right?
Right, exactly. So I am not going to really probably be putting that into the call for entries, but that's what I'm thinking right now. And anyway, thank you. And Richard, I was thrilled that you came to our meeting last night. So thank you. That was great.
I'm so sorry I missed it.
Yeah,
it sounded great.
Too. But we're getting a BAA YouTube channel, and the meeting last night was recorded, and it was really terrific, I think. And so you can watch it, plus stuff about the Transforming Belmont project before. But anyway, this looks like a fabulous show, and I can't wait to see it. I've had personal, very big events that have prevented me from doing so beforehand. So thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Derry, for
Great.
mentioning the transformer boxes. That was something you guys have been doing this now. This will be the 3rd year.
Yes.
We got to have a virtual show with
Yes.
the Transformer box artists from the last 2 years, last
Mhm.
fall, which was just wonderful. If you want to check it out and see if it inspires you to do an application. I mean, you guys, the art that you do, would make wonderful boxes along
Absolutely.
with climate change and,
Yeah.
some really
Yeah,
important
and the
messages.
Belmont Media Center did a great video of last year's boxes, and that will be getting uploaded to our new and up and coming YouTube channel. But right now it's on the Belmont Art Association's website, and I think it's also on the Belmont Media Center's website as well.
And it's on our website too, and on our YouTube, I believe.
Yeah, so let's beautify Belmont. Let's talk about climate change, but let's not be so political that our town administration gets a little anxious about it.
And there, a spoonful of sugar, open the conversation.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So anyway, but thank you, Adine, Rebecca, for all you do, and Richard for the great well-hung shows. And
I'm sorry, old man joke.
Thank you. So everything looks great.
I want to put it in a word for, I mean, mostly the people who are here are artists, but please do tell people when they come to the show or when they go to the virtual show, there's information about purchasing art. I mean, some of this stuff is so beautiful, and it would look so, it's timeless. Beautiful graduation gifts or wedding presents, or a treat for yourself. If you're interested, just give me or Rebecca an email, a call. it's all on the virtual website, and there's our sign in the gallery that says what our phone numbers are. So don't hesitate, and please tell people you're sending to see the show. Please call us. And I know all of you have lots of wonderful art, and it's not just what's in the show. And please do tell people. We can put them in touch with you if they want to do a commission or look at some of more of your art. And as I said, also clicking on your name on the virtual website will take them to your website, your Instagram, and things like that. So if anyone else had a comment or a question, I don't want to get in the way, but I do have some announcements. If I do a screen share again. Oh, Richard, you raised your hand, sorry.
Just not for a question, but just for a comment. I've been associated with the gallery for a very long time. And for a brief period of time, I actually was Rebecca's right-hand person. And so I came to know how much enormous amount of work it is to make this a successful proposition. And the two of you, I can't say enough about how much effort is put into it and how good the outcome is, how good the product is. I really think the virtual shows throughout the pandemic were fantastic. The shows that you mount are really remarkable. I mean, we're getting back to doing a lot of them every year. And I just couldn't be prouder. And I think somebody ought to pat you both on the back.
I'll pat Rebecca for you. Thank you, Richard. That's wonderful to hear.
Absolutely.
It's exciting. And along those lines, Rebecca and I are thinking during the summer, because it's a slow time, that we are just going to we've been going through all the old materials, the 17 years of shows, and we're just going to put up all the old posters in the gallery. And I'll put them all online too. So we'll get a sense of over 17 years, all the different wonderful shows. I mean, I was going through some of Rebecca's bins and I'm like, whoa, I don't remember this. This is great. So this animal art postcard is just a small taste. We've also got, as I've mentioned briefly, some events coming up. We're going to have Rick Olick, the wildlife photographer. He couldn't join us tonight because it's his birthday. I told him if he stopped by, we would sing to him, but I guess he's having too much fun with his family. But he is going to give a talk on his photography. And he discusses the wildlife itself, the personality of these creatures, his ways of just hunkering down very Zen-like and being there at the right moment. If that lemur tail took Chelsea one day for every stripe, certainly Rick's patience is very similar and the results are just spectacular. Then Chelsea is going to do a felting workshop with some wonderful mushrooms with personality. And you've seen her work now, so you know how much personality can happen. And then I'm going to do a Sunprint, a free family workshop to do little 4x4 Sunprints in the gallery, which should be a whole lot of fun. And then we're hoping that Christian Breivik can do a virtual talk about his marvelous whale lanterns and the other work that he does that involves all those wonderful intersections of art and community and information. We've got a couple seconds, Christian, if you're there and you just want to put it in a quick word, if that is something that we can make happen, but no pressure. I think that's everything I needed to say about what's coming up. But yes, Amy.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you. It sounds like you've arranged the virtual show really cool that they click on our name and all of our information pops up. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys, you offer up this abundance, right? And we get to kind of pick and choose, and then Richard arranges it all, and it's just so exciting. And then the idea of, like Jean was talking about, engaging people, starting conversations, letting people try something new or talk about something new. And that's what it's all about. And if you do a transformer box, it's even more conversations. And it's good. It's time for us to really talk with each other. Definitely. So the gallery is open on Thursdays and Fridays. Thursday hours are 10 to 4. Friday is 10 to noon. And we're going to do every Saturday and Sunday 1 to 4, except this weekend, which is Memorial Day. So we're taking it off. But please tell all friends and family to go to the virtual show, the real show. We'd love to see everybody there, and there's nothing like actually seeing the art in person. And this was the first time I've been down to the gallery in over 2 years, since March 2020, and oh, it was just so thrilling to see all your work. I want to put in a word for Eliza Brown's bat. Be still my beating heart. That bat is just so gorgeous. And we wanted to try, Chelsea has a bat. We wanted to have her bring in the bat to talk with your bat, but you know, oh, all the possibilities. There he is.
Yeah, he's on my ceiling. That's where they're supposed to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you all so much, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Keep your eye out for the information on the special events, and I'll say hi to Rebecca for you all.
Thank you, Aideen, for all you do. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks so much.
You.
You guys are great.